Hello, please join us with your cameras. So if you could click on raise my hand at the bottom of your screens. This way we will see you too, because we are all in favor of social integration where physical distancing. So there is a physical distancing between us, but we would like to see your faces. Oh, hello, Janie, it's good to see you. Thank you very much. So this morning here in California and the evening in the UK, it's noon in New Mexico, where Dr. Michael E Barnard is going to join us. Hello, Matthew. Hello, Sue and Joe. Good to see you guys. Wonderful.
So just as a quick disclaimer, we're recording these webinars so we can share it with the others, and we're also streaming this live. So if you're not willing to show your face on the recordings, just please don't join with video. Otherwise, we're super happy to see your faces. We're not showing your names in the recording. We're just showing faces so other people can see all of us taking part in this.
So the recording doesn't have the names. Only the people who are joining us live can see the names. So welcome to the webinar. Good to see everyone. Wonderful. Wonderful. So we allow a few moments for people to join us. Today I have a different cup. It is New York cup with solidarity with New York. Plus, my son this month is graduating from New York University. So, but he's graduating from home in California. So it happens that the lockdown started when he was on the spring break here at home in California. And actually, our American adventure started in New York. So that is where we did our internship in 1992. We will give a few more minutes for people to join, and I see the numbers of participants is quickly rising. So I see that there's more people to join us. Those of you who want to be part of our panel, please raise your hand at the bottom of your screen. This way, Dr. Janczyk is going to get you also on the panel, so we can see you. We can feel connected. It is much easier to feel connected when you see people's faces. So thank you, Dr. Janczyk, for making this happen. Aleksandra Marcinkowska from the UK. She is also helping us out and adding some feminine power for us, because otherwise we are skewed with Dr. Michael E Barnard from New Mexico. Thank you very much, and please don't share your screens yet. Oh wow. That is a nice screen.
Okay. Block the option for others to share.
All right. So welcome to our webinar, and our webinars are growing. It also, we can see that a lot of people are watching us on the recording. So and we appreciate your interest. And yes, we appreciate that you join us for 2 hours, many of you every week. And that is really wonderful. We know that 2 hours is a lot of time taken out of your Sunday, but we really appreciate you joining us and participating in sharing this experience. So and each webinar, it is our 7th webinar. So we started March the 22nd because I had actually an influx of requests how to deal with the pandemic, the isolation, and the fear that people are experiencing, and simply I couldn't respond to all the needs. So I just started teaching people those. So it was also for me a survival technique to just share what I know, and because it gained popularity and on at least 2 continents, so we decided to continue. And then Dr. Michael E Barnard joined us. We've worked together since 1997, and Alexandra Marcinkowska from the UK. But the second webinar was already joined by Dr. Jończyk from Prosoma, who really manages the technology, because actually my first webinar was crashed because more people tried to sign up than I was prepared to, and I was prepared to manage only 100. So thank you very much. Today what we are going to be talking about, and this is the technologies, as I already mentioned, I made mistakes and we make mistakes. We are not pros in this process. I'm a pro in helping people, right? I help people all the time. That is my job. And I teach people emotional self-help, and I've been doing it for 32 years, primarily working with cancer patients. But the same things, the same skills that help cancer patients and their families turn out to be very helpful to an average person. And this, particularly during this pandemic, we learned that our usual skills that we have may not be enough to manage this, our emotions and stress and other problems that we experience. And therefore, we are offering you the skills here. So we will briefly, so today we will be talking about how the words that we are using affect how we see the world and how they affect how we feel, most importantly. And so Michael, if you could recap briefly the basis, cognitive basis for what we do.
Great. Thanks, Mariusz. So great to see everybody today. More people than we've had, so very exciting. And it's great because this is really one of my favorite topics to talk about, healthy semantics. It's as Mariusz said, the words that we use and how they shape the way we go through the world, really. And I think some of the things we'll talk about today, these can lead to some of the quickest, easiest changes in your emotional experience, in your behavior. If you can start to just pay attention to the language you use and the way that language creates our reality, you can suddenly learn to change that languaging so that you can be more effective in what you're trying to get done. So it's really a great topic. We're excited to present it to you. But because there are new people today, maybe some who haven't attended our webinars before, I want to give a brief overview of the model, the cognitive model that we're using here. So could you put up that the ABC slide, please? So in this model, it's based on cognitive therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, in particular, Maxie Maltzby and his work with rational behavior therapy. We start to break down cognitive events, emotional events, into their component parts. So, you know, we often are in a situation where something happens to us. So let's say we're driving. I do a lot of commuting, so I have a lot of experience with this. So, you know, you're driving down the highway, someone slams on their brakes ahead of you. And you don't think there was any reason for them to do it. What happens immediately? You feel angry, you feel frightened, you get that jolt in your body. Maybe you go by and give them a piece of your mind or a piece of your finger anyway. So a lot of things can happen when you're in a situation like this. You get to work, you tell somebody, you can't believe what happened. This guy slammed on my brake. It made me so angry. I flipped him off. That's how we tend to talk about things. That something happened and that made us feel a certain way. It made us do a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this model says there's actually a step in between there that in terms of doing the work, changing ourselves, it's really focusing on that middle piece that happens. So this is where we come to the ABCDs of emotions. So just to give you a quick overview of it, activating event, the situation, that is A. So in this brief example I gave, that would be driving down the road, somebody in front of you slams on their brakes. Skipping B for just a second, go down to C. Well, what were the consequences of that situation? How did you feel? Well, you felt startled, you felt scared, you felt angry, maybe a whole bunch of other things. And then finally going down to D, what did you do? Well, I sped up around him. I gave him a piece of my mind. I was frustrated all the way to work. What we want to do is start to look at the B's. What happened in our heads, in our minds, that led us to those behaviors? Because in this model, it's not a situation that causes you to feel something or to do something. It is your beliefs about the situation, the thoughts you have, the things that came up in your mind. So in this example, for me, it could have been, you know, what an idiot, slamming on his brakes in the road. He didn't even pay attention. He should have pulled over to the side. All these things that I tell myself, that's what leads to the fear. Now that initial startle response is a separate thing. That's something that goes on in the brain automatically. But then if we continue to be angry about it, continue to be frustrated, do things that we shouldn't do, that is because of the things that we tell ourselves about the situation. So very quickly in summation, it is not the world that makes us feel things, but it's the view that we take of the world that makes us feel things. So moving on to the next slide, please. So what we look at in our model is called healthy thinking. So when we're looking at our beliefs, what are those beliefs that didn't work for us in this situation? When the guy slammed on his brakes, for me to say this guy's an idiot, who does he think he is? You know, those are beliefs that may or may not be healthy. What we talk about in this model is a way to analyze beliefs. So once we learn to identify what are those beliefs that led to these feelings, to these behaviors, then we need to be able to analyze those beliefs to see whether they are healthy or unhealthy for us. Different models call it different things. Some call them rational, irrational. We like healthy versus unhealthy. So very quickly, when we want to look at a belief to determine whether it's a healthy belief for us, something that we want to continue having, we look at 5 separate areas and ask ourselves 5 questions about that. Is this belief based on obvious fact? Is this guy really an idiot who's not thinking of anybody but himself? Second one, does this belief protect our life and health? Does it help me to think that this guy's an idiot and I've got to flip him off? I can tell you from personal experience, some people in the state I live in like to chase you if you do that, so I don't worry. Third, does this belief help me help me to achieve my short or my long-term goals? If my goal is to get to work in one piece, to arrive at the office calmly, probably to tell myself this guy's an idiot, doesn't care about anyone else, is not going to help me meet those goals. Does it help me to avoid or manage most unwanted conflict with others? Probably not. Like I said, I've had too many situations where my negative beliefs and resulting behaviors escalated conflict. And finally, does it help me feel the way I want to feel without abusing alcohol and drugs? So, you know, for me to go through the world thinking that everybody on the road is an idiot and doesn't care about anyone from themselves, does that help me feel the way I want to feel? Does that help me feel calm in my life, feel relaxed in my life? So these are the questions. This is a technique that we use to analyze our beliefs to determine whether they're beliefs that we want to continue and is going to help us in our future. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so because this is a very quick overview, I would encourage you to go back and look at some of the previous webinars, especially Mariusz's first one, where you really went through this in detail. But in order to determine whether one of these beliefs we identified is healthy for us, well, first of all, it has to obey one of the, at least 3 of the 5 rules. So we saw those 5 rules. If you cannot answer, is this healthy, to at least 3 of those, then it's not a healthy belief and you have to eliminate that. It's also important to know that healthy thinking for one person does not have to be healthy thinking for another. So this is one of the things I really like about this model, because when you're talking with somebody, helping them work it through, it is really completely their point of view. What they say is right or wrong for them in that situation, is healthy or unhealthy for them, then we accept that and say, okay, I recognize your rules might be a little different than mine. Similarly, what is healthy now doesn't have to be healthy at other times. Maybe I can't really think of too many times where it is healthy to think a driver is an idiot. Well, if someone's being aggressive, perhaps, and you think that driver's an idiot, let me just pull over and let them get down the road and create some space, then maybe that's a healthy belief at that time. Last couple, finally, all rules are equally important. So when we apply those rules to our beliefs, it's not like, well, this one's not based on obvious facts, so I don't think I need to go any further. No, you're going to go through them, each scoring the same. And then some rules may not apply to some situations. So there are some beliefs we may have that can never be proven as obvious facts or not. We just don't have enough information. And so we would, in that case, throw that out. Mariusz, would you like to add any of your wisdom to that very quick overview?
So it is hard for me to add wisdom, but but I can add some. So that is a great example. So and that is the genius of Maxi Maltzberg. We will be reflecting on this. So it was his wisdom really, and genius of succinctly describing it. And our presentation today on healthy semantics stems primarily from rule number 1, which is it based on facts? So in this ABCD model, today we are going to look at B, which is our beliefs, attitudes, and thoughts, and particularly on the language that we use in that B. It turns out that we use habitually a lot of different words, that we have habitual automatic responses. And actually, it was Pavlov who discovered that the words can substitute for any real stimulus. So that means that we have, so that we don't see the reality. We see reality through the lens of our beliefs, thoughts, and attitudes, and the words can substitute for any real thing. And that is very important, because if we believe and we think that we lost something like our phone or car keys or so on, and we believe they are not with us, then they may be sitting in front of us and we may not see them. So, and all of us experience that. So that we don't have direct access to reality. This reality is filtered through our system of beliefs, and particularly the language that we use. And you may know that I'm Polish and Alexandra is Polish, even though we live outside of Poland. And there was a Polish guy actually who noticed that. He was a Polish engineer, Korzybski, Alfred Korzybski, who noticed that, hey, these are the words that we are using really shape the world, how we see the world, and how we feel about it. And actually, it may also affect how effective we are in living in this world. Alexander, do you have any questions before cleanup before we dive in? Because I don't want to leave any over.
No, everything is clear to me. We can. Okay. Yeah, great. No questions. I'm just looking at the chat box, but there are no questions at the moment. I'm leaving this to you now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So I also sent a table that we may add to the end of my presentation that may be helpful.
So Mariusz, would you like me to provide an activating event for you that we've been working on in this class, so that can kind of frame the way we go through things here?
Yes, that would be absolutely.
So for you, those of you who've been attending the last few, let's say I've created a fictional situation in which I have ongoing conflict with my adolescent daughter about leaving the house during this time when we're not supposed to be leaving the house. Identities have been protected to spare the innocent, and I will say that there's only some amount of reality in the things that I'm saying. So we've been using this as an example to kind of go through the ABC model in the previous week. So what I did this morning is I created an activating event based on something that happened last night. And we're going to use that throughout the course of the webinar today to take a look at how language shapes it. But just to start with, I'm just going to say it out loud, and then you may start to see some of the things that that we're going to be working on, that some things may stick out for you. So, so Mario, here's what I put down for my A. So my daughter made me so angry and frustrated last night. Every single day since this lockdown has started, she insists that she has to go meet with her friends, despite knowing the dangers of this horrible situation. It makes me think that I've failed as a parent. She really should understand the risk that she's putting everyone under when she leaves the house, but I'm so sick of arguing with her that I just give up. It's just too hard. Yesterday, I made a deal with her that she could go for a drive after she cleaned the filthy kitchen. And when it came time for her to leave, it had not been done yet. She said that she didn't get a chance to do it, despite spending every minute of her afternoon watching YouTube videos, and didn't have time because her friends were waiting. It made me so frustrated that I didn't have the energy to argue with her. I can't continue to be this way. I shouldn't have to argue with her every single day. I feel like I'm a terrible parent. She is a selfish kid, and this is just a nightmare. Okay, so that's what I wrote down last night to try to help myself cope a little better.
Thank you very much. That is a great example. Again, it is not that Michael is just presenting fictitious, and sometimes we also record the fictitious scenes with Alexandra. It is not that they have terrible neighbors or terrible children. It is simply because we want to, they are using a certain language that we want to emphasize and use it here. And one of the words that you might have heard a lot Michael using was the word should. And I will focus on that for the next 40 minutes or so. So on one word we will be focusing for 40 minutes, yes. You see, Karen Horner was the first one to really look at that we live in the we are enslaved by the word should and shouldn't. And it was also Alfred Korzybski who noticed that this word is really not reflecting Karen Horner. Sorry, people sending questions. But it was Albert Ellis, the father of all cognitive behavioral therapists, who pointed it out. But Alfred Korzybski was also noticing, the Polish engineer turned out into applied semantics expert. He noticed that, hey, this is not reflecting reality, and then Maltzby really expanded on it, showing that, hey, you see, this should that we use usually is not very healthy, and he expanded on it. And also he noticed that the word should is at the basis of all anger, all resentment, all guilt, and very often all blame, blaming self and others. So that is the reason we are going to be spending 40 minutes on it, because that is such an important issue at the basis of a lot of our disturbance, emotional disturbance in healthy people, because this program is for healthy people, mentally healthy people, who have unusual challenges in life. So yes, I work with common people in uncommon situations. That is my, so I'm an uncommon psychiatrist because I work with common people in uncommon situations. So, so let me give you, and we also work with uncommon populations too, like with Michael. We applied the healthy semantics in a unit that we worked, and just healthy semantics helped. We work with teenagers. Michael may speak to that a little bit later, a little bit more. But just tweaking the words that they were using, it was absolutely fantastic, and they applied it like a flame, not all just to themselves, but also to our staff, so we didn't have to train staff. And one of those words, should, and Albert Ellis used to say, don't shoot all over yourself. And we are shooting all over ourselves all the time. So yeah.
So Mariusz, let me right now just add a little bit more to the adolescent story. It really worked out fantastically. This was an inpatient unit for adolescents, and one of the main treatment modalities was group therapy. We would have groups all day long, beginning, middle, end. It was set up so that anybody, any resident of the community could call a group at any time to address an issue. So there were lots of groups. So as Mariusz and I introduced this concept of unhealthy semantics, we actually put it up on the wall, the list of the words, and encourage people when they when they found one of their peers using this language to point it out to them. And like Mariusz said, it spread like wildfire. There's nothing adolescents like more than pointing at the doctor and saying, "Doctor, you said should," or "You said this or that." They loved it. They really became engaged. But what we saw is very quickly, that kind of language went away. It didn't take much to extinguish that type of language because, as Mariusz will say later, we don't want to use this as a weapon, but some kids would use it as a weapon on each other and on us as the staff. So it was really powerful, and still that was 25 years ago, but still I've continued to use that with my clients in both group and individual therapy, and find that they find it super valuable in their life and in their relationships.
Yeah, and then this was a forensic unit, so these young men were all offenders, and they very often came in a lot of medications and so on, and practically we were, as a psychiatrist, I was taking them off medication rather than adding to that medication. Most of them were living without any medication and doing much better. So it was a fantastic experience. And yes, and since I've worked with a lot of forensic populations, I wanted to give you an example with adult forensics situations. Malsby sent me once to a prison to teach staff rational behavior therapy. And I was doing the weekly workshops, and when they learned it, they said, "Hey, would you like to run a group here?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I was very young at that time. And they said, "What type of a group?" And I was very humble. So I humbly said, "Oh, any type of a group could do." So would you like to run a group on anger? And I said, "Oh, yeah." And because I needed hours for forensic psychiatry, so I said yes. So that is, and then I started running those groups. But before the first group, I was expecting maybe 8 to 12 people in the group. That is typical therapeutic group, and the guard is walking with me through this prison and to this building, leading me to this building, and I hear noises coming from the second floor on that building, and I'm almost saying, "Wow, someone is having a problem." People yelling and screaming. What are they doing? Some psychodrama or something? And I was up. I mean, that was really loud noises, and then and we end up going to that building, and I go, "Wow, I hope I have my class on the first floor." No, I had it on the second floor, exactly where these noises were coming from. And I see pale guards standing on the steps leading up to there, and I say, "Oh, that doesn't look good." And so they lead me into that room, and I see 32 angry guys yelling and screaming, and I couldn't understand. I really didn't understand urban language that well at that time. I'm still not really fluent in it. And these guys were yelling something, and I was really scared, right? They were angry, and finally, the guy I asked the guy, "What's going on?" And he said, "Why did you bring us here? We would be very happy to stay on our cots. We don't have much time. And here you are bringing us here, saying that we have anger problems." And I said, "What anger? I thought that was a group for idealists." And idealists? Yeah. I'm sorry. I need to check with you if it is the right group. I asked staff in the prison to select the greatest idealists. And they say, "Oh, wow." They started calming each other. Hey. And I say, "And they told us it is about anger." No, it is for idealists. So that saved my life, right? And because they calmed down. So what idealists? Let me ask you if maybe there are some idealists on this webinar. So just tell me if when everything is exactly the way it should be and nothing is the way it shouldn't be, when you honestly, fully, 100% believe that everything is the way it should be, are you in any type of distress? So everything is ideal, ideally the way you would like it to be. Are you in any type of distress? They said, no. But then let's think that things are not perfectly, ideally, exactly, but close to it. Yeah. So you may have slight discomfort, but overall you are saying things are okay. Is it right? But then sometimes happens that the universe is not cooperating with your ideals. So you have a clear ideals how things should be, but they are not, and then you are experiencing a little bit more and more distress, right? And the more the universe is not cooperating, and the more the universe is not the way it should be, and the more people behave the way they shouldn't, the things are, the food is not the way it should be. Remember, these guys in the prison didn't have much of the freedom to influence anything, and they hated a lot of things. And then when you see that a lot of things are opposite to the way it would be ideal, opposite to the way it shouldn't be, you may have acute fits of idealism, right? And you just had a fit of idealism when you thought that ideally you will be on your cot, and here they brought you to some group that they tell you that you have anger problem while you're simply an idealist, right? And that saved my life, actually. So this idea that, oh, we are idealistic. So I think that it is much easier to understand, because you see, anger, we hate anger and we don't admit to anger, right? We say, I'm not getting angry. I never get angry. Relax. I am relaxed, right? So, so that is a very common problem, because people, because what? Anger is only second to joy of all emotions that we like to maintain, and I will explain why. But at the same time, anger motivates us to harm and destroy. So we very, very often are left with regret and guilt and blaming ourselves for what we have done, because we said things or did things that we didn't mean to say or do. So that is a problem with anger. So we don't like admitting to anger. Right, so we frequently say, "Oh, I was frustrated." Some people even say, "Oh, I was anxious," right, or restless. Or we try to use different words, but not to use the word anger. And so, but anger really, like all emotions, it has its purpose, it has its benefits, and so so I would ask you to put in the chat, what are the benefits of anger? What is the purpose of anger? For example, it protects our integrity, right? It clearly tells us that something is not according to our values. Also, anger gives us clear idea where are our boundaries, right? Anger helps us to focus on something that is happening now and is important and potentially dangerous, right? Anger also communicates to others. When I'm getting angry, it means that something is important to me, right? Alexandra, do you see any benefits popping up? Can you unmute yourself first?
Can I ask some questions at the moment, because there are some questions from our participants. So first of the question is, do we have an access to the list of the trigger words? So is there any list that you will make it available for the participants?
We will get to all the words at the end, yes.
Fantastic. And the second question is, what role do affirmations such as I'm healthy and in control play in keeping us mentally healthy in time of stress, such as COVID-19, where care extra care is a kind of new normality.
Mm-hmm. So exactly, we will use a specific for you and your language form of mental practice, because affirmations that you get from a book are not specific for you. And here, with our method, you will learn how to use a mental practice of the way you want to speak to yourself and about yourself, about the universe that is specific for you. Yes. So it is like affirmation, but the affirmations are not specific for you. Yeah.
Mariusz, let me jump on that question a little bit as well. That's really the point of this webinar, is that words create our reality. In a positive way, in a negative way. So if we go, as Mariusz goes through should, if we go through the world thinking everything should be a different way, we're going to feel anger about that, frustration, all the emotions he's mentioned. But if we put things into our minds, like I am healthy and I am in control and I can get through this and I've been through difficult times before, if those are the beliefs we're focusing on, then we're going to feel better about the situation. We're going to behave in healthier ways within that situation. So this is the whole point, is that the word is everything. For human beings, the word creates our reality because they reflect the beliefs we have. So you can use this in either direction.
Thank you very much. So we will be teaching you how to substitute unhealthy beliefs to healthy beliefs. Okay, anger helps me to protect myself. All right. And what else, people? I saw Alexandra, can you tell us what else is coming up as benefits of anger in the chat?
Do I see it? And anger helps me express that my standards have been violated, which means that my boundaries has been crossed. Anger is a source of energy, which has got the motivational element in it. Anger helps as a stress relief value, takes away physical stress somehow. Yeah.
Okay. So that is great. So it is. So I'm not saying that eliminating anger is the goal of this presentation. No, because anger is an important part. So anger may be healthy, but very often this presentation is about how we can manage anger when we want to, when this anger is unhealthy. And Michael gave those 5 rules for healthy thinking to decide whether it's healthy or not, right? Whether it's based on facts, whether it helps us to protect our life and health, whether it helps us to achieve our short and long-term goals, whether it helps us handle conflict with others, and particularly this is an element, important element in anger, and whether it helps us to feel the way we want to feel. So this presentation is really focusing on the factual basis of should and the factual basis of anger, which actually you will see it is not there. So the problem with anger is that is also self-reinforcing, right? So we it's not just have benefits, it expresses our values, that we care about things really strongly, that things are important, and we stand behind those values strongly, and we make it known, and it is in very clear way. And then, but you see, so what happens? Why it is so hard? Because I work with a lot of people, and for a lot of people, it was really hard to get free themselves from anger. First of all, anger feels right to me. When I am getting angry, I know I'm right. So it also feels much better than anxiety, because of what? When I'm angry, I have no doubts, right? Because I'm right, and I know who done it and how they're going to pay for it. All right. Also, anger, as it was mentioned, energizes us, right? It feels much better than depression.
Are you free on the slides?
No.
No.
Oh yeah. Yes, we can do the slide. I forgot about it. Thank you. It's so good to work with competent people, right? And so also we believe that we have clear solutions to that. And when and so also what happens is that when we get angry, people like in the example that Michael gave, the angry driver who is honking and so on, people just give him space, go ahead, right? Or if people, so anger gets us some things really quickly. Sometimes we are reinforced because when we get angry, people just give us what we want just to calm us down or get away, right? So the problem with it is like with gambling. It works sometimes, but it is intermittent schedule of reinforcement. That means it is like gambling. We win from time to time, and that is the behavior acquired that way is really hard to extinguish and get rid of. So that is a difficult problem. Also, with anger, we punish people, right? And we communicate that we care on one hand, okay, but when I get angry at my daughter, for example, it means I care about her, right? Because many daughters get out of the house during the time of pandemic and you are not upset about them, Michael. You're upset about just about your daughter because of what you care and you love her, right? And Alexandra gave an example last week about there may be this icy anger. So giving people cold shoulder. I'm not talking with you, right? So we are demonstrating our anger, and punishing people this way. And actually, it is a form of abuse, right? And also the power that I'm showing, my power. But also, anger is a righteous, it's a moral emotion. So we've already mentioned that it reflects our values, and it is this righteous indignation, and a lot of people who want to convey their values, that they get angry. And yes, and we already mentioned the fits of idealism, and it is just a way of us saying, no, we had a fit of anger. And so let's come back to our to us and to our prisoners. We'll come back to them at the end. So I wanted to ask you: do you ever get angry when everything is the way you honestly, truly believe it is the way it should be, and nothing is the way it should be? Have you ever gotten angry? No, right? We get angry only when we think that suddenly it is not the way it should be, and everything is the way it shouldn't be. So we use this word, so we hide anger behind that word should, as if it was some universal rule, and we'll expand on that. So anger is always, but also resentment, and also guilt, and also blame is always rooted in those words should. So I'm going to ask you another example and we already gave it one of the previous webinars, that you are driving on the narrow one-way street, and there is a truck in front of you, and suddenly it stops, and you, of course, are in a hurry, and you think, oh, he shouldn't just stop. He at least should have used the turn signal or hazard lights. Why is he doing? Plus, if he moved more to the right, I could squeeze in on his left side. And this way, now he's blocking all the. He shouldn't be doing this, right? So we are shooting all over ourselves, and then we are maybe also angry at ourselves. I should have left earlier, or I shouldn't have taken this shortcut, and we are really upset. So because we are not simpletons, we decide to leave the car and go to them and give him our peace of mind or piece of our hand. And then what happens with our intellect? We are really getting really smart. And we are already, these words that we are going to tell him are just coming to our head. And we are so happy to see that his window is rolled down, and we are just about to deliver our lines. And because that would be full of shoulds. And then we see, oh, those kindergartners are lining up in front of this truck and learning to cross the street, holding hands. It's a sweet view, right? Would you still be angry at him? Would you? Shake your heads if you wouldn't, or say, or nod your head if you would. So no. So you wouldn't be angry anymore. Actually, you would be relieved, possibly, that you didn't deliver any lines because it would be embarrassing, right? So you are happy to see that, and that, oh wow, I'm glad that I'm not. So how long would it take you? Where would that anger? So how long would it switch you from anger to joy of seeing those kids, or relief, or whatever other emotions you have? How long would it last? That little, right? You know, it's less than a second. You see, turning off shoulds and to this shouldn't be this way. Oh no, everything is the way it should be. Immediately turns off the anger, right? So that is instant. It is actually the speed of electricity, electric impulse from one neuron to another neuron. It happens between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. That oh, it shouldn't be this way. To oh no, everything is the way it should be. Right. So there's no drug that can work as fast. There is no narcotic. There is no medication. There is nothing that can eliminate your anger as fast, or your fit of idealism. Sorry, as fast as realizing that everything is the way it should be, right? So now. My question now, I really want your consent here, and I hope that everybody hears us, because I can do this for you, that nothing ever in your life will happen and shouldn't happen. And from now on, everything that will be happening in your life should be happening. So if you don't want that, I'm sorry, turn off your audio or something, and then just tune in 15 minutes or so when Michael's going to talk about other words. Are you okay? All right, I see the panelists.
Can I ask you a question, Mariusz?
Yes.
Someone earlier on, Dinesh, wrote in the chat about the situation we're in, about COVID-19, about being out of work for 2 months and not getting paid for 2 months and all of that. So are you saying that this should be happening, that this pandemic should be happening? People should be okay with that?
Okay, that is a great question, and we'll arrive to that in, I think, 10 minutes maybe. And so yes. So here again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel the way we feel. So, and you understand that we always should feel the way we feel, and that is using healthy semantics in a moment. So yes, so we used so thank you for those who are still staying, and I see that only one person dropped out from the number of participants. So we use the word should as if something that we see in the universe or in the world or in someone else's behavior or what they say, we use it as there is some universal rule telling us this should be this way and that shouldn't be this way. But what really happens is that we are hiding our values, our preferences, and making them into demands. And that was what Albert Ellis would say. And according to Albert Ellis, demandingness is the basis of all human disturbance, and all other cognitive distortions and so on stem from us demanding for the reality to be different than it is. So actually, we are coming to the root of suffering today, to the very basis of suffering. And so bear with me. I'm trying to cover it in 10 minutes, so the basis of human suffering, huh? So so we are using this should as a shield for our, like a screen. Oh, this should be this way, shouldn't be this way. But behind the screen is our preferences, what I really want. There's no universal rule. But if we are presenting it to the world as if there was a universal rule. And yes, since we share many values, a lot of our shoulds can be shared. And that is what politicians are using when they have this righteous indignation and they say, oh, this shouldn't be this way, it should be this way. And then they rally their support around the anger, right? And but what is the only principle of the universe that governs the universe? This is the principle of cause and effect. That means if something happened now, is happening now, or just has happened in the past, the causes for this are lying in the past. Can we change the past? Please, if anybody can change the past, send me a text message or put in the chat box, because I want to meet that person. I really would like to fix certain things from my past that I screwed up really badly. But you know, but most of people that I have met, practically, I'm asking everyone that I meet to practically, if they know someone that can fix the past, then to get me in touch with that person. But so far I have never met them. And Maxi Mosby, Carl Simonton, David Burns have never met them, and my other mentors have never met them. So until we meet those people, the only thing is to focus on cause and effect principle. That means that if something is happening now, or just has happened, or happened in the remote past, but we are still resentful about it, that means it has had to happen because causes to that are in the past. So that means that everything always is the way it should be. It cannot be differently if you look at it from the principle of cause and effect. But you see, we are conditioned to use the word should in a moralistic, absolutistic, idealistic sense. So instead of using ideally, it would be if this and this happened. We are using, oh, it shouldn't be happening. It should be happening this way, right? We are not saying, you know, I really would like this to happen this way. No, we are saying, oh, it should be that way or the other way. And not only that, but we are describing it the same thing into ourselves, right? So if something is happening, it should be happening, and it is really profound thing. So freeing ourselves from this moralistic, idealistic, absolutistic way of using should, and using it only in a healthy, based on facts, based on cause and effect principles way, is really liberating. And Carl Simonton like to emphasize this, because this way, if I'm really focusing on, okay, everything in this universe is always the way it should be. Sometimes these things are not the way I like them, right? So if I won't find a way, until I find a way, a strength to change it or prevent it from happening in the future, I can calmly accept it, because everything is always the way it should be. And nothing is ever the way it shouldn't be. So of course, I'm presenting it in a very shortened version of it that I did with my prisoners in Lorton prison, right? And they were really in difficult situation, because majority of them had AIDS, or the rest had HIV, and at that time there was no treatment for it. Many of them had, practically all of them had prognosis of survival shorter than the term they were serving. And it was before protease inhibitors. It was 1995, and there was no prospects of any survival for them. So they were under significant distress. But you see, week after week, we are learning that they can. So people like them taught me that really it is our mind, our thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes that shape how we feel and how we act. So they were really, weeks after weeks, they became more and more grateful, and I felt very safe with them. at the end. But we really had a quite intimate connection. They felt that I was not judgmental towards them, and I was learning from them a lot of urban language. I will not be repeating those words here. But now if the truck stops in front of me, I can very easily give the piece of my mind in much better and much stronger words than I used to. And they were asking me, because you see, we had the same gangs that we had in Washington, D.C., we had the same gangs in prison. And in my group, there were also representatives of different gangs. There were rivalries between those gangs. And now they really connected on a very deeper level. But their children, now they were killing each other right now. So they were asking, so are you saying that children should be killing children? And I said, now let me ask you, so our children are killing each other. It was painful for them to see it. They wanted this information that I'm conveying to you and that I conveyed over many weeks to them to be available to their children. And I say, no, let me ask you something. Children should be killing children? Actually, at that time, Washington, D.C. had the highest murder rate of all cities in the United States, even before New Orleans. And so I asked, now let's imagine that children are raised in the environment that the most violent people have the most prestige, or most respect. That these people are also the richest. They have the access to the best cars, and also because of they have women and all the other superficial aspects of success that these kids were growing up, and these kids have never seen a conflict resolved in any other way except with a lot of anger, shouting, and physical, often physical fights. And if these kids have access to guns and know how to use them, and if one kid has the loaded gun and pulls the trigger, and the bullet leaves the gun and goes through the vital organs of the other kid, damaging them irreversibly and instantly, should the other kid die? From the cause and effect principle, not absolutistic, idealistic way. Should the other kid die? Should. Because, you see, there were causes for this to happen. The problem is that people, like politicians, very often are looking at idealistic. They will say, oh, this shouldn't be happening. It should be this way. So there's idealistic way of looking at things, right? From the idealistic, absolutistic, moralistic way, right? So we are putting our morals there, right? Of course, it is painful to see kids shooting kids dying. It is painful. But if we want to resolve that, we need to look at the causes, not to just paint, oh, it shouldn't be this way, and then paint some idealistic picture how things should be. Because if we don't address the causes, we will never resolve the problem. Yes, Michael.
I think that you're making the case about the use of the word should, and I'm seeing in the chat and in the example you just gave, people have a real hard time with that. Someone is suffering, someone's out of work, someone has a terminally ill child. What do you mean you're telling me that it should be that way? It just shows you how much, for most of us, that word should is moralistic. That word should is about someone's opinion about how the world, what the world needs to look like. And so I think you're making the point very effectively that it's the way that we use the word should and what it means to us and untangling that meaning. Lisa made a great comment in the chat that I'm wondering if you could say something quickly about is, how about using statements like it would be nice if, or it would be preferable if, to moderate the shoulds versus eliminating? So the conditional should, what can you tell us about that?
So what we use, so first of all, there's a lot of suffering. there's a lot of things that happen to us that are painful and create suffering. Yes. So being out of job, having children living in the neighborhood that people that there's a lot of violence, that our children are exposed to gangs and drugs, and that everything is available, guns are available. That is painful. It is not far away from where I live, you know, that there is a lot of gang violence and so on. And so it is very painful to see that. It is painful to see your child being sick. It is painful to be out of work and not having a way of earning your living right now. Yes, it is painful. But again, by using the word, and I'm not saying not to be angry about it. Yes, anger may be healthy for you. I'm only saying that from the perspective of rule number 1, facts, everything is always the way it should be, and by describing the present situation with it shouldn't be this way, it should be differently, we are putting demands on reality that add additional layer of suffering. So it's not just that my child is sick, that I'm out of work, that my other child may be in gangs, but at the same time, I'm adding additional pain by saying, "Oh, it shouldn't be happening this way." And you see, Carl Simonton really liked this word "should," because Carl Simonton was teaching that in order for us to heal, because we have natural tendency to heal, all right, just allowing that to happen. So his way was to be in harmony with our nature. It sounds new agey, but we are teaching how to be in line with our nature. It is by engaging in things that bring us joy and aligning our things with the laws of nature. And one of the laws of nature is the cause and effect principle. So if something is happening when I'm saying, "Oh yes, it should be this way," it is a deep level of acceptance. So if I want to find my way out, I need to accept where I am first. And then I can move to where I want to be. But if I am demanding for the reality to be different than it is, I'm not seeing the causes for this, what happened. So yes, however painful the situation is, I don't want to add fuel by describing it in unhealthy shoes. By focusing, "Oh, that is the way it should be," deeply, profoundly, unconditionally, and radically accepting it. Okay, I'm without work. My child is sick, another one is a gang. How I move forward from that.
So Kathleen, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I want you to interrupt me because
okay. So Kathleen asked the question, so is there a difference between should as a fact and a conditional should? I would say should as a fact is what creates suffering, creates most of the suffering, is should as a fact. All shoulds should be conditional, because if A happens, then B, then C, then D should happen. That's setting a target out there. And it's also recognizing the critical initial conditions that have to take place, the cause and effect. If I want to get here, I need to do this, this, and this, which is a much healthier way of looking at the world than just, no, it should be that way, and that's it. That's how it is.
Yeah. So as long as I'm going to be, I'm using simpler examples. Like for example, I'm in the shopping mall and I want to go to Nordstrom, right? But I find myself by Macy's and I may throw a fit. I don't want to be by Macy's. I want to be by Nordstrom, right? So what do? You just go to this little map that you have and it have the arrow. You are here. So really, by saying everything is the way it should be and nothing is the way it shouldn't be, is really this our arrow. Okay, I'm here. I'm here. If I want to be somewhere else or a different situation, how I can get there. All right, I'm here. here's Nordstrom, I need to go this way. But if I'm going to be only looking, I want to be here and pointing at Nordstrom on the map, it won't happen. I need to first agree and accept profoundly that this arrow showing me next to Macy's is the arrow where I am. If I'm without work, if I'm without, that my kid is sick and my other kid is in gangs, that is painful. And what you are experiencing is, and I'm glad that you have difficulty experiencing it. That means that what I said about should, that everything is always the way it should be, stirred up really strong emotions. So you actually tried to think that way, that everything is the way it should be, and it felt wrong. It felt weird. It felt not natural. If you are in a really difficult situation to think that way, it is exactly like trying to drive in England on the left-hand side of the road. If you are used to driving here, it feels weird, awkward, unnatural. And really with this should, it is not just like driving on the left-hand side of the road. It is driving on the left-hand side of the road upside down. Really, we are so deeply conditioned to think in absolutistic, moralistic, idealistic way, how things should be and how they shouldn't, that it is, what I'm asking you to do is really, really, really going against really strongly and deeply ingrained in you attitudes, right? So when we engage in something that is opposite to our deeply ingrained habits, we feel really, really different. So I don't know, AJ, if you were able to incorporate that table that I emailed you later into our slides I wanted to show here. So these are so moralistic, idealistic, absolutistic shoulds focus on what is not real now, right? So like children killing children or things like that. And realistic, factual, healthy should, based on cause and effect, refer to what is real. Now, moralistic, absolutistic should reflect our opinion. And what is right for me should be right for everyone else. Can you imagine? It is like Michael likes using the driving example. Anybody who's driving slower than you is an idiot, and faster than you is a maniac. It reflects that. So ideally, everybody should be driving the speed that I'm driving, right? No, actually, there's some people need to go faster, so I can go slower, and so on. I'm actually driving much slower than I used to, because of what? My my reflexes are not as fast as they used to, and my vision definitely not. So moralistic are magical based on the belief that just because I want something badly, it should be happening, and no. And healthy shoulds, that is based on objective reality, that only things, certain criteria, certain causes I need to put in motion before something may happen. And science wouldn't be possible if moralistic should be true, you know, because we couldn't do experiments. Experiments and replicating experiments only is based on the fact that, oh, okay, if I do this, this, and this, I will have this result, right? So yes, unhealthy shoulds and moralistic, absolutist, idealistic shoulds lead to inappropriate anger, and healthy shoulds lead to calm, corrective action. If I can, or acceptance. If I cannot change it, I can calmly accept it. If I can, I will. And yes, the moralistic, absolutistic shoulds may be leading to confusion and conflict with others, because our shoulds are maybe similar to some other shoulds in other people, but then we will always find some shoulds that mine are different than someone else's moralistic, idealistic, absolutistic shoulds. And if you could scroll down to the bottom, and healthy shoulds is always based on reality, which is the same for all of us. And yes, and discrimination is based that people should be the same way I am. So they should behave the same way, they should speak the same language, they should have the same beliefs, while in fact, healthy shoulds recognize that we are all different, we are raised in different environments, we are conditioned differently, and we may have different preferences. So healthy should lead to tolerance and understanding. All right. So we will come back to that at the very end. So if there are any questions, this is the most difficult thing that I ever present. So and thank you for bearing with me. And actually, we didn't drop that many people. But if you apply those health issues, I can guarantee that nothing will ever happen in your life that shouldn't happen, and also nothing
there is
that should not have happened. Yes.
There is one question in the chat box in regards to the shooting and reality, and there are also two questions about around the anger. So do you want me to ask those three questions that I've collected from the chat box? Or all right. So the first question was about REBT, which stands for the Rational Emotional Behavior Therapy, sees anger as an unhealthy emotion. Annoyance is a healthy way of feeling and expressing frustration, rational view of the situation. Can you comment on that one, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Rational behavioral therapy is based on how human brain works. The rational emotive behavior therapy was what Albert Ellis developed, is based on philosophy. And therefore, in Albert Ellis, he instead of being angry at something, we may be rationally annoyed with it. But from the perspective of Maxim Maltzby and how the brain works, in every situation, we have three emotional choices. We can have negative emotions like anger, and of course, different intensity of that anger, from being extremely mad to being annoyed, which is also still a negative emotion. We can be neutral, which is radical acceptance, calmly accepting it. And we also can be happy in the same situation. We can have positive emotions about it. So every situation may be, so we have, our brains give us those three emotions, and those three emotional choices in each situation. However, people are usually not motivated to work on feeling positive emotions in situations that they habitually feel bad emotions, or negative emotions, not bad, but negative emotions, except for maybe procrastination, that they want to like the task that they now hate. But also, what is important to know, and it is not a new idea, actually we can trace it to 2,600 years ago, in different philosophies other than Stoic philosophy, but also Viktor Frankl. He was the psychiatrist from Vienna, Jewish psychiatrist who went through Holocaust, and he discovered that and he wrote in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, on the page 66, he says, the last of human freedoms is the freedom to assume any attitude that you want, regardless of the situation. So even in extreme situations, you can learn. And he noticed that it was not the strongest people, not the smartest, but not the best educated, but those who are able to really realize that in the Holocaust, those who were able to survive extreme things. And I would maybe leave the other questions to the end, and I would like to get Michael the chance to go to his part. And so can you remind us, that because I will focus only on the shoes that were in your statement, but I wanted, if you could describe the situation again and go into that. Or can you unmute yourself? It was going to be easier to hear you.
I thought you knew how to read lips. Could you, Andrew, put up this slide? Okay, so this is what I said. So just based on the bit that we've talked about, and I don't want to spend the time to put this all in the chat and everything, just everyone read through that, kind of make a mental note for yourself. Some of the things that you would see as what we would call unhealthy semantics, things that are counterproductive to us feeling good, words that we're telling ourselves that maybe creating more suffering for us. So just kind of read through that. See how many examples.
So maybe, can you read it quickly, because some people may be just listening.
Okay. My daughter made me so angry and frustrated last night. Every single day since this lockdown started, she insists that she has to go meet her friends despite knowing the dangers of this horrible situation. It makes me think that I failed as a parent. She really should understand the risk she is putting everyone under when she leaves the house, but I'm so sick of arguing with her that I could just give up. It's just too hard. Yesterday, I made a deal with her that she could go for a drive if she cleaned the filthy kitchen, but when it came time for her to leave, it had not been done yet. She said that when she said that she didn't get a chance to do it, despite spending every minute of the afternoon watching YouTube videos, and didn't have time now because her friends were waiting. It made me so frustrated that I didn't even have the energy to argue with her. I can't continue to be this way. I shouldn't have to argue with her every single day. I feel like I'm a terrible parent. She is a selfish kid, and this is just a nightmare. Wow, I was pissed off when I wrote that last
night. just writing that.
Yeah, just reading it. Excuse me, I've got to go. So go to the next slide. Okay, so in red, and maybe you guys even found more than I did, but in red, these are the things that would stick out as unhealthy semantics. So if I was actually doing this for myself to help process a situation or working with a client, when I wrote out that event, this would be one of the first steps I did, is go through and see what kind of unhealthy semantics am I using when I'm talking about this. And we're going to kind of quickly go through a bunch of these different examples, but Mariusz, are there any in particular in there that you see right off the bat that you want to comment on?
So definitely I like the should that you noticed, on the should statements, the shouldn't statements, and this is great. So that is that you know, so we know that everything is always the way it should be. So if you guys argue every single day, then you should be arguing it. Yeah, so that is a great example. And if she doesn't understand the risks, that means what is the cause? That maybe she needs more explanation to understand the risk. But if she doesn't understand the risk, then she shouldn't understand the risk.
Yeah, thank you. So a lot of shoulds in there. Other things I'll just point out quickly that are considered unhealthy semantics. Made me. If you guys have been paying attention at all, you recognize that things don't create emotions for us. It's our beliefs. So she didn't make me do anything. Using terms that are like every single day, everyone, every minute, every single day. I use those throughout there. That's saying that this is happening all the time, every minute. And if I'm telling myself that, then I'm forgetting about those times when we didn't argue, and we had a nice evening, we watched a movie together. So it's very frequent that we use those kind of words, and they create, anytime the situation does not work out in agreement with those words, it creates some suffering for us. Similarly, words like horrible, filthy, terrible, selfish, nightmare. Again, those are words that are portraying a situation in the worst way possible. And honestly, having an argument with your adolescent kid is not a horrible situation in the big picture of all the things that are horrible out there. We'll talk about words like I didn't get a chance to, I didn't have time to, because that's not true. She had a chance all day long. She was watching videos. She could have taken a minute and cleaned the kitchen. She didn't have time. Yeah, she has plenty of time. Her friends could wait. I put one in there just to harken back. She is a selfish kid. So again, using the word to myself, selfish, putting any label on someone else is automatically setting you up to feel a certain way. There's not many parents who would look fondly at their child if they keep telling themselves this kid is selfish. So our perceptions of the world are based on the words that we tell ourselves. But I put kid in there. I remember Mariusz and I, in one of our very first workshops that we ever did together, a guy came up at the end and he had a very upset look on his face. And he's like, I need to talk to you guys about something. Okay, well, we're open to feedback. I think it is the most disrespectful, terrible thing how often you use that word kid over the course of your workshop. And we were talking a lot in the workshop about the adolescents we work with. Kid is demoralizing. It is actually refers to a young goat. So you're referring to children as animals every time you use that word kid. And I remember Mariusz and I just kind of looked at each other and like, validated what he said. But from that guy's perspective, using the word kid is an unhealthy semantic because it reflects badly on the children that he's trying to address. So I don't know how you all did. Maybe put in the chat whether you were able to pick the majority of those out or how many you really picked up. When you really look at it, there's at least a couple in every sentence. And this, while I obviously wrote this to illustrate the point, this is very typical of a kind of description you get when you first start doing RSAs and writing out activating events. So.
Yeah, and I see that you have not put some of the words that Korzybski was talking about, but they are reflected in it. Like every single day, it may be like always, right? And she never listens, possibly, right? So Alfred Korzybski used to say, you should always remember never to use always and never. So that was his
So let's go to the next slide. So we're going to spend probably the next, I think, about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes going through some examples. And Mariusz, I would like you to...
Okay, can you turn off this slide for a second, because that is not... all right. So since I'm actually, I've been quite demanding in most of my life of myself and the universe. I like this demandingness words, like I have to. So I should already cover it, but I have to, I must. And Albert Ellis used to call it a masturbation. I must, that way, spelled with a U. So these demands that we create, and you see, how many of you like to be told, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that? Please raise your hand if you don't like to hear that. And tell me, how many of you tell yourself, oh, I still have to do this, I have to do that, I should be doing this, I must finish that. How many of you just do that, right? So now, a question, if someone else tells it to you, oh, you have to do that, you must be doing this, why are you doing that, you should be doing this, how are you feeling? Quite upset, right? And what is happening with your motivation to do the thing that they tell you that you have to, should, or must do? You want to tell people off, right? Exactly. So yes, we really don't like it. But so many of you already said that you are using that language to yourself, right? And then, so look, when someone else tells you, there is a rebel in you, who are you telling me what I should be doing or what I have to do? Who are you, right? Oh, don't tell me. I mean, we don't like it. And we are rebelling against any such have tos, shoulds, and musts. But look what happens if we are telling it to ourselves. When we are saying, oh, I should be doing, I have to, I must, then we are rebelling to ourselves, because you see, you are saying those words to yourself, but you are actually not doing them. But what happens to our brain? Our brain cannot just sit and observe. Our brain takes these words in a literal fashion, right? And so it understands it really literally, and it connects these words to our nervous system and conveys it to our body and puts our body in a sense of distress. if I'm saying to myself, I should be doing this, I have to do this, I must be doing that, and my brain sees me not doing it, so our brain is assuming something bad is going to happen. Really, the words that we are using are wired very deeply. And here I would like to do an exercise with everyone with, okay, so if you take a moment, if those of you who are driving, don't use it. But those of you who are sitting or at home, please do so. So I want you I would like to invite you to this exercise. And that is very simple. You know, we actually just picked the last citrus fruit from our trees yesterday, but just imagine that there is a lemon. You know, I think that everybody saw the lemon, the yellow, really ripe lemon, and just close your eyes and imagine that you are holding a lemon, right? If you are holding a lemon, and then you can see the shape of the lemon, the color, the intensity of the color. You can see the surface of the lemon that is like porous, right? It is not very even. It's not smooth like an apple, but it is porous. And you look at that, right? You can smell it. Lemon has a smell, you know, but it's not very intense that much. Then you can squeeze it a little bit. It has a little bounce to it because it is ripe, but not overripe. It is just perfect, right? And now, imagine that you put it on the table and the cutting board, and you cut it gently, slowly, and the moment you cut it, you can see you get the smell, much stronger smell of this lemon, right? And you can see on the surface that these droplets of juice are collecting on the surface, and you're holding this half of that lemon in your hand, and you smell it. You bring it closer to your mouth, and you smell it, and you see these droplets, and you give it a little squeeze, and you can hear the sound of the squeezed lemon, and the juice is dripping on your hand, and you lick the juice from your hand, and lick the lemon, and then, wow, it is the lemon. What is happening in your body when you hear all those words about this lemon and the smell of it and the taste of it, and this crispiness, this taste is filling your whole mouth, and it is, you know, it is this lemon, the tartiness, the taste. Where do you feel it on your tongue, in your mouth? Where is it? The taste. Where do you feel it with all those smells? Right. So I will ask AJ to put up a poll right now. So did you imagine this lemon? And now do you have multiple choice test? Did you see this lemon in your mind's eye? You could hear it, the sound of it being squeezed or cut. Did you smell it? Did you taste it? Oh, here it's been cut twice. You could just mark out everything that applies. Or maybe you just thought of the word lemon and thought of the color yellow or juice. Or some of you might have had no thoughts related to any lemons. Oh, it says you cannot vote somehow. You have a poll problem? AJ?
Yeah, I think that the host and panelist cannot vote for whatever reason. There is a strange feature that Zoom applied with this update, and apparently it is turned off.
Yes. Yeah, I was given an interview for TV yesterday. Zoom was different. Yeah, version 5 point something. Sorry about that. So put your, if you could put in the chat. You see, hear, smell, taste, thought, or nothing.
Well, we should have still votes from 53 people because they were not panelists. So do we have the results of those, Andrew? Yeah.
Okay. So the majority of people were able to see it, 88%, perfect. And 50% heard it being squeezed or cut. 76 smelled it. 71 tasted it. Being cut, 26 I did, and 56 thought of the word yellow lemon juice, and no thought, 3%. Thank you very much. And can we go to the next poll?
And this time panelists can vote.
So everybody, please vote. So what was your physiological response? Salivation, which is the saliva coming to your mouth, watering your mouth. I mean, my mouth waters when I'm talking about it. I need to rinse off this this sour taste. Did some people may have experienced hunger or thirst or nothing, or some people may have had other. And if other, please put in chat what would be the other. Glands on either side of you seem squeezed. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, wow. Thank you.
We have most of the...
Margie, I see. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Salivation, definitely majority, 57%. 2% hunger. Thirst, 20. And I had salivation and thirst too. Nothing, 7%. And other, 15. So it is interesting. What would be the other? Sour taste. A lot of you didn't put it in the poll. But I think the sour taste would be important. So that would be other for this 15%. I noticed. All right. Thank you very much. So you see the connection. We were using words, and suddenly you are transported into. There was no real lemon. These were just words, and they created a physiological response in you. And that is like when you are reading really good literature, you can be transported to very different worlds and different times, and you don't know where you are, right? And so that is good literature. Fantastic in that way.
Mariusz, yes. Going back to the I have tos, Mitch put in the chat one of the most common questions or comments we hear. I was told that the only thing I have to do is die.
All right, so let's put the next slide. That is a fantastic question. We are prepared, and Mitch, especially for you, we have a slide for you. You see, a lot of people say that, oh, we have to pay taxes or we have to die, and really, a lot of people don't pay taxes, and they very often end up in jail. Yes, there are consequences to our choices. And then there is a lot of people who still believe that we have to die. Now, here we have the cartoon from our upcoming book, ABC of Your Emotions, with Michael, that we are completing. And Alexandra is also helping us complete that with her daughter, Dominica. And so here's the cartoon from that. The death comes to Charlie, you have to die. And Charlie says, no, there's nothing that I have to do. It is your job, not mine. And indeed, a lot of people die in their sleep. And they do nothing. It is going to happen. It is going to happen. I mean, I think so, at least. It happened to all the generations before us. But there's nothing that we have to do about it. Thank you. All right. So yes, Michael, let's move on to.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide.
Let's go to the next slide. A very common belief is that time heals, Michael.
Yeah, so this is one. So we're just going to give some examples now of different semantics. You know, you hear this, oh, just give it time, it'll go away. The point of this is that time really doesn't do anything. The example that I always like to give, a quick one, is think about that first love of your life. You were 13, 14, whatever you were, and so excited, so in love, and then you guys broke up for whatever reason. You were, at least if you were like me, you were devastated. You took to bed, you were crying, oh, I'll never find anyone like her again. It was so sad, so terrible. But now if you ask me to remember her name was Shelley, by the way, am I falling apart crying again? Am I in that same emotional state? No, I'm not. Time passed. Time didn't heal me. Time is not what made that be different for me now. What time did do is give me the space in which I could change my thinking. So the reason I don't fall apart, break down thinking about Shelley is because I changed all my beliefs from this is the end of the world, I'll never find anyone else, to all of the other things the ways that I've lived my life in the last, 37 years since that time. So
may I jump in and say something? Yes, that is a great example. Thank you very much. But it also shows us that we have three emotional choices, right? So from the moment of being really devastated when we broke up and we didn't know any better, we were too young to apply healthy semantics and ABCDs and 5 rules, to now, to maybe after some time that we came to the conclusion, no, there are nice other people that I can hang out with, and to be neutral. And now some of us may be really happy. Oh, I'm so glad I didn't stay with that person for the rest of my life, because it would be miserable, right? So, I didn't want to say anything bad about my former ex-girlfriends, with whom most of them are pretty good friends still. So.
And let me provide the flip side to it. And this is a story from my family. My grandmother had a child in the 1940s, early 1940s, who died of crib death, at a very young age, less than a year. I remember growing up, hearing my grandmother talk about that, and every time she talked about it, she broke down. Every single time. And until the day she died, when she was 88 years old, she could really not talk about that child. If time was going to heal her, time would have healed her over those 65 years or whatever it was. But what didn't change was her beliefs about, I should have checked on him, I should have known something was wrong. All of the things that she kept telling herself over the years kept her in that hard, sad, emotional place. So time has nothing to do with it. It's about changing your beliefs as time passes that will help you move through it.
Thank you very much. So, and since we are already talking about time, the frequent, and that was also in your daughter's statements, that she doesn't have any time. And the most frequent, in cognitive behavioral therapy, if you are in cognitive behavioral therapy, you will get homework, and very often it's written homework. Most often it's written homework. So if you go for cognitive behavioral therapy, you're not getting homework, you're not getting cognitive behavioral therapy. But the most common excuse that patients give us for not bringing homework to therapy is, I didn't have time, or I couldn't find time. Where in fact, now, so every patient has the same exact point, same exact time. If we see them every week or every 2 weeks, whatever, however often people are seen, they have the same amount of time. It is simply, we cannot possess time. We cannot just put time in our pocket and pull it out when, no, we can dedicate time, all right. So since now I'm in cognitive behavioral therapy, it is important that I will dedicate time to go to my therapist and to do my homework. And actually the form of therapy that we do, that we encourage people to become their own therapists. So they need to practice every day. And you can intensify your therapy incredibly by applying these skills every day and practicing these skills every day, particularly the skill that we are going to do at the end of this class. Yeah. So we could go through the table, Michael. So the very important thing is that so when you are upset, you write down what's on your mind. We presented in previous workshops rational self-analysis. So when you're upset, you put down your thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes in writing. because being upset, that is when you are actively thinking those things, and that is the best time to do it. And so in REBT, Alice would start disputing them. That is not how we do it. We want people to really collect all the associated unhealthy beliefs, and then before you even apply 5 rules, we just scan it for the following words that are very commonly reflecting unhealthy thinking. And in these words, we also have all the irrational beliefs, all the demandingness, awfulizing, and all the low frustration tolerance, and so on. That was in RPT, but also we have all the cognitive distortions that David Burns formulated. So just by using this table, you can uncover all the things, and we are saving you a lot of learning of cognitive distortions. So I'm just using the healthy semantics for it. So.
So Mariusz, I know that you have a really great meditation, and I want to make sure that we save time for that. I would suggest perhaps that we continue with healthy semantics next week, of course, giving all of our attendees homework to try to keep track of some of their own that they use over the course of the week, and so that we can work on replacing them next week.
I thought that we could go over to the table still.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your so here we have our so the first in your first sentence that you had she made me feel, right? And that is very common what we use, that it creates our feelings. But we know according to ABCDs, they do not create our feelings. So what would be a healthier thing for me to say? No, it was me with my beliefs, thoughts, and attitudes. I created how I felt in C, and so no, we didn't put the list of cognitive distortions. You don't need to use them right now. Once you learn this, you don't need to use the cognitive distortions. Michael is more adept at explaining that. So
the alternative here then would be more accurately, I made myself so angry from that conversation with my daughter. So taking the locus of control inward with you, I did this to myself, not she did it to me or made me anyway.
Okay, and always, never, everything, nothing, everybody, or nobody. That are common generalizations that are very rarely, if ever, true.
Yeah, failure. Great quick example. Thomas Edison, who allegedly invented the light bulb. There's questions about that, but Thomas Edison, after the light bulb was invented, he was being interviewed by a journalist, and the journalist, talked to him about how much work had gone into it. How many experiments did you do? I did almost 10,000 experiments to figure it out. And the journalist asked him, how could you keep going after failing time after time after time again? Edison's response was, I never failed one time. I succeeded 9,999 times at not making a working light bulb before I finally got the working one. So I don't know whether that's a completely accurate statement or he really believed that, but it shows that kind of reframing for yourself, instead of saying, I can't fail again, I keep messing it up, I can't do this. If you change the focus to, no, I learned something out of this, I got something out of this, then that's more likely to motivate you to keep going with it.
Yeah, so that was very important, that he didn't repeat the same experiment over and over. He kept changing the elements in this experiment. And he was saying, oh, I eventually ran out of the ways how to not to make a light bulb, and eventually we'll have a working light bulb. And I can't. That is a good one. Henry Ford, the inventor of the first mass-produced car, used to say, if you say you can't and you say you can, both ways you are right. because our brain is going to be directing you to only, if you say, I can't, you will only see the reasons why you cannot. If you think of, oh, I can, then your brain is going to look at the ways you can actually do it.
We covered those ones. We should maybe go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some alternatives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's go to the next slide. It's not fair. Oh, I like that. You see, very often we see the statements, oh, it's not fair, or it's not just. And that is, oh, it should be fair. The underlying is demand that it should be fair. And there are different philosophies, but the problem is, yes, things are not fair. And that is the problem. And very often, it is when we had the last draft of the book, but since then we will going to change it. Unfortunately, some of the setup of our societies is not fair. And I think, yes, it is not fair, but also it is the choices as societies we made. And now this COVID is revealing this unfairness of certain things. And hopefully we'll be able to formulate a much more just and fair society in the future. All right.
It's too hard, and I'll try. There's a subcategory of these that are called motivation killers, and these are good examples. If you're saying, oh, something is too hard, that's killing your motivation. Same as saying I can't do it. It's really limiting the likelihood that you're going to invest a lot into it, because after all, it's too hard. I'll try is building you in an excuse. I used to use this one all the time. I get a call in the late afternoon. Oh, honey, can you stop at the store and get some milk? We're out. I'll try. Knowing full well, I'm not going to the damn store after work. I'm tired. I want to go home. And so when I get home, where's the milk? You didn't get it. I didn't say I would get it. I said I would try. So that's one that we use often as a weapon for people.
You will get this chapter in your materials after the seminar, so you will have all the explanation of all those things, right? Yeah, like I didn't have time to do it, or I didn't have the chance to do it. That is that we chose not to do things. All right.
Well, the yes, but we got to emphasize that one. That's because when you say yes, but you're basically saying no. Would you like to go out for Chinese food tonight? Yes, but I'd rather try that new Indian place. So you may as well have just said, no, I don't want to go out for Chinese food tonight.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Yeah, we did it. We covered the time part. It will never be the same again. That is a good one. And actually, yes. And with this COVID-19, I actually hope that things won't be the same, that we will use this pandemic to revise our values as societies, and our values as human beings, are part of the society, how we relate to each other. It is really painful to see how people are still fighting, and divisions that are growing, despite that we are unified in this, and we can only fight it together. We covered the shoulds already. I feel that it is emotional reasoning. Yes.
Yeah, emotional reasoning. That's one of my favorites. We talked a little bit about that last week. When you're trying to express how you feel, you should be expressing an emotion, not a thought. And as soon as you say something like I feel like you're not listening to me. No, that's not an emotion. That's an opinion. It's a belief you have. But tell me what that underlying emotion is. And with this one, we tend to oftentimes in our culture think of emotions as really being very important. You cannot question my emotions. You can't tell me how I'm feeling. So when you're telling someone, I feel that you're not listening to me, they can't even argue that because that's your emotions, and your emotions are your experience. So we have to get away. Well, we don't have to. If we want to communicate effectively, then we have to, that's a conditional have to, then we have to label our feelings for what they are feelings and express our opinions and beliefs as they are opinions and beliefs.
Yeah, and another form of emotional reasoning is, which is a cognitive distortion, identified by David Burns and Aaron Beck. It feels like it is true, or to me feels like it is a fact. No, facts exist outside of our belief system. So facts are objective. And yes, sometimes we feel very strongly about things and we try to justify them, as Michael said earlier. And the last one is dichotomous thinking. Michael?
Yeah, that's a classic cognitive distortion, often called black or white thinking. It's for those folks who can't see the gray in the middle. It's either this way or it's that way. There's no room to say, well, where can we meet? How could we reach a compromise? This one leads to some of the most conflict in relationships because people can't find a way to meet in the middle and they're polarized.
Yeah, and sometimes the middle is not the best way to meet, right? Like where the scientist meets a flat earther. It's like, what would be the shape of the earth be then? All right, so yes, and so let me quickly address the issues, the questions that came up, the question of affirmation and how they apply here. So we don't teach people affirmations. We engage them in practicing certain way of thinking, and we will be doing it right now in relationship to use of healthy should and freeing ourselves from absolutistic, moralistic, idealistic shoulds. That is what we are going to be practicing now, what Maltzby used to call universally calming perspective. And yes, some people commented that isn't shooting just avoiding reality? Yes. By us not accepting, by us saying it should be differently than it is, it's a certain way, we are still holding on to our ideals, our values, but by accepting it, we are not giving up our values or ideals. We are still knowing what I value, but realizing that it didn't happen this time. And if I really care about my values, I can put it into action in the future. And then the should motivator for a lot of people, we should protect the environment. We should. So I'm not saying that anger is not a healthy emotion. It may motivate us to do the right things, right? So it is, and whatever we use in this healthy semantics is not to apply it dogmatically, only to reveal it in a healthy way. Oh wow, I may see it this way or the other way. Only when these words create problem, that is a problem. And please don't use these things as a weapon. Or healthy semantics as a weapon in your relationship. Oh, you said should. Oh, you should have to. No, let's take responsibility of our own language, how we use it, right? And now I would like to invite you to just drop into this. Just notice your breath. Just notice your breath and follow your breath, taking in when you breathe in and out when you breathe out. So you will ask you to focus on this, on the moment that you got irritated, not maybe extremely upset, but just some irritation. But now that was this activating event, the A, but you see yourself calm in C and acting D the way you would optimally act if you wished you had acted. So you have calm emotions and calm actions. But you can feel calm and have calm actions because now you radically and unconditionally accept the reality of that moment. That everything is the way it should be. So you think of that moment that everything happened the way it should have happened. Even though this event was different from what I wanted to see. Just using your calm breath, thinking in when you breathe in and out when you out. And extending your breathing out. And then thinking until I can change it to the way I want it to be. I can keep myself pleasantly calm, naturally. As you remember from this exercise, an example with a big truck blocking the road. So once you realize that everything is the way it should be, your anger dissolves like snowflakes falling on warm water instantly. So, with this warm, private smile on your face right now, with this calm breathing, in this slow, relaxing pace, you can radically and unconditionally accept this situation naturally, as you think it is healthiest for you. So you may choose to stay only slightly annoyed by the situation, or be neutral about it, or be happy about it even, because it may facilitate the change that otherwise wouldn't have happened. So continue to breathe in this relaxing pace and smiling just privately to yourself, and reminding yourself everything is always exactly as now should be, and therefore has to be. Even though the situation is not what I wanted from it. But there is no objective, universal reason why I should always get what I want. It's only the universal principle of cause and effect. So if I want to see something different in the future, until I can change it, I can calmly accept everything the way it is and therefore it should be. And I can become the change that I want to see in the world. Taking responsibility of my part and realizing that my aligning my thinking with the universe is fulfilling my true nature. And very gently and comfortably return to your usual state of awareness, usual state of consciousness, being more aware of the lights, the sounds, and the presence of other people. And as soon as you're ready, just go ahead and open your eyes. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, so So Alexandra and Michael, are we getting any questions, comments? We will, so we are coming to the conclusion of our webinar, but we can still address some questions and comments, and we will stay for 10 minutes afterwards. Like usually after workshops, we hang back for a little bit so for people can come up to us and ask us other questions they didn't dare to ask in public. So thank you very much for all those that need to leave right now. But Alexandra, Michael, any questions that we need to field before we conclude?
Yes, there is a question. Can you comment, please, affirmation over healthy semantics? So this is one of the questions.
So it's very important that our, first, I don't like using the word affirmations. I prefer to use the word mental practice, because that is what really is, mental practice. I'm practicing something that I want to happen. So like in driving in England on the left-hand side of the road, for those who live in countries that with the right side of traffic, if I imagine driving over there, I can learn much faster over there. So really the practice in my imagination is very important, because the life doesn't give us enough opportunities to practice, particularly anger. Life usually surprises us, and then we end up practicing old things, old habits of getting pissed off and saying, oh, it shouldn't be happening. So we really encourage you to use specific mental practice for what you want to achieve, and then the mental practice script that you may write for yourself has only healthy semantics in it. So it doesn't have any shoulds, have tos, oughts, musts, and similar things.
There is another question about the affirmation. How is an affirmation different than a positive thinking? And someone commented, I was taught rational thinking was not necessarily positive, but was real. So which means that...
So healthy thinking is based on 3 of the 5 rules, right? So it's based on either one of 3 rules. Based on facts, protecting my life and health, helping me to achieve my short and long goals, helping me to handle most unwanted conflicts with others, and helping me to feel the way I want to feel. And 3 of those 5 rules is, if it is obeying, then it helps me. It is healthy thinking. While positive thinking very often ignores facts of life, the same affirmations, very often they're made. And so, and what is healthy for me is very important, because I can use those 5 rules and see what is healthy for me. Affirmations are written by someone else very often. I need to be very specific in my own thinking. So my own thoughts, what is healthy for me, I want to practice what is healthy for me. So mental practice, what is healthy for me.
Does healthy semantics or affirmation has good validity or moderate scientific evidence?
The semantic, I mean, in cognitive behavioral therapy, the semantic techniques are used, and they are validated as a technique. And but in RBT, we are putting much more effort on it, because we know from Pavlov earlier on that the words really, that is, with the words that we use, we create the world. And actually, that was what Buddha said. But the cognitive neuroscience confirmed that he was correct.
Can you please give what is the level of evidence on clinical implications?
Please come to our workshops for the professionals. These workshops are primarily geared towards common people in an uncommon situation of COVID. So all the professionals we invite to come to our professional trainings or workshops.
Thank you so much. These were the all questions that people were asking during the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
If I missed any questions, please forgive me. I do apologize. You can always send a question into the chat box next time.
And now the panelists. So thank you very much for all the questions and your participation. I apologize that I didn't get to maybe all of them in time. So. Oh, there's a recent paper published in February that Michael and I and some other co-authors that looks at the scientific basis of rational behavior therapy. So.
I wanted to say thank you to Ola, who is doing wonderful job running our
Ola is me, is Alexandra, actually. Not everyone knows that Ola is the short version in Polish for Alexandra. So yes.
You know, we can teach some Polish, so
yes.
Ola quote Alexandra. Ola. Thank you, Ola, for doing incredible job.
You're welcome.
Our wonderful group. And for anyone who didn't sign up yet, we invite you to join our ABC of Emotions During Pandemic group, Facebook group. Ola, if you can say two words about the group.
So actually in the group we've got common people in uncommon situation. The group is run in English, so we share all the information about the seminars, all the materials, and homework is in English. We also have some Polish speakers in our group because probably they live in English speaking country, or they have a partners who speak the language. So please, you can share it with your Polish friends as well. I think that the group is approximately about 500 people, and we also have the same group in Polish, which is about 1,600 people at the moment, where we put all the materials in Polish for the Polish speaking people as well. I'm just going to add some links to the chat box if anyone would like to join our ABC of Your Emotions During Pandemic Facebook group. And I also add some information about the webinars and the Prosoma YouTube channel, where you can see all the past webinars, I think from 1 to 6, if I'm correct, in English and in Polish, because I can see some Polish names during this webinar as a participants as well.
The lucky 7.
Oh, yeah, so today is the 7th, yes. Yeah, let me just...
And we had lucky 1, lucky 2, lucky 3, lucky 4, lucky 5, lucky 6, and we will have lucky 8, lucky 9, lucky 10, 11. So maybe we don't know how long we are going to go on.
Yes. Okay.
But statistically, 50% of them are going to be below average, and another 50 will be above average. So.
Yep. Nice. Okay.
And also, if you let me send also to all panelists our link to our website. Where we keep, oh no, this is...
We will be sharing all of the recordings, all of the links, all of the materials and presentations via email to everyone who attended and registered to the webinar. So somewhere around Wednesday, you should be getting this. So don't be worried.
Okay, I just sent the link to our website where we collect all the information, all the recordings for all the... any questions, panelists? You can unmute yourself and just jump in. Everybody can unmute yourself. Can they unmute themselves? Marsha.
Hi.
Hi, Kathleen. Katarzyna. And where are you, Katarzyna?
London.
London. All right.
I need to spend more time to go to London than to Krakow. That's... I live down the north on the Manchester area.
Okay, yeah, quite far.
Yeah, quite far, and is a Yorkshire, and I live like 15 minutes from the airport, and the flight is 1 hour 20 minutes to Krakow. So, yes.
I don't go around too often, but
yeah, 6 hours to London.
All right. Any questions? We still have 43 people online. So
yes, ask some questions.
can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Absolutely.
So you talk a lot about anger, but you haven't mentioned anxiety. How can we put anxiety as a seeing it as a healthy or obvious emotion?
So yeah, so definitely anxiety is also putting us on alert and makes us more aware. Also creates a motivation that we are focusing on certain things. So yeah, anxiety has a lot of benefits too. And we don't have one specific semantic root for anxiety. We have that one semantic root for anger, and that is the reason why it was so fitting to use it today. But we don't have one for anxiety like that. So anger, resentment, guilt, shame, all those things are very precisely are always rooted in shoulds. And shoulds is demanding things, reality to be different than it is. And that is root of all suffering. And anxiety is also, I don't want this to be this way. There is a should in anxiety too, to a certain extent. Yeah.
One of the things I see in anxiety very frequently is what if, asking that question. What if this happens? What if that happens?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. So, and who asked those questions about the evidence? I'm going to put the link to our paper that we had in February, that we published in February, and we will have another paper comparing RBT with other forms of cognitive behavior therapy soon too. So feel free to. This is open access paper, so you can look it up. It is more theoretical than practical, but actually for therapists, it teaches you how you can apply RBT and incorporate it in your practice anyway. So it is so good to see you all. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next week. And really, it is such a joy to see all of you. But it is also such a joy and privilege working with Alexandra, Andrew, and Michael. Michael is, I mean, we've been good friends for a long time, best friends, and it is always joy to see you and hang out with you and prepare those webinars with you. So.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, thank you to all the attendees. Really makes my weekend to do these with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you have any Polish friends, please invite them for tomorrow for 5 p.m. of the UK time, 6 p.m. of the Polish time, because we're going to run the same seminar. I mean, the idea is the same. The idea is the same, but it's never the same tomorrow as well. And there is a Polish group. If you have any Polish friends in here, please do let them know about us, because we share a lot of nice stuff in Polish as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you from all different parts of the world that you are greeting us from, here in Chile and other places.
Peru.
Yes.
We had someone from
Peru. Yeah. Wow. That is great.
Amazing.
Well, thank you very much. Bye-bye.